Chapter 20. Saturday Night. Like snapshots, the scenes in the next few minutes froze in Meg's mind. Shannon hugging Ellen. Ellen finally forcing a smile to her face. Ellen hugging Lisa. Lisa laughing about how surprised Ellen looked. Ellen joking to Meg that she'd find a way to pay her back for this. Half joking, maybe? Tony and Ellen greeting each other stiffly, each looking more uncomfortable than the other. Tony congratulating Meg for pulling the whole thing off. Kids crowding around Ellen to say hi and welcome her back. Ellen starting to look more comfortable as more kids came up to greet her. "It's really going well," Shannon shouted in Meg's ear, trying to be heard over the noise of the crowd. Meg jumped. She wasn't expecting anyone to come up behind her like that. "You look great," she told Shannon. "Doesn't Ellen look great?" She really was surprised. Shannon wandered off to talk to some other kids. Meg went over to Tony, who was on the edge of the crowd, not talking to anyone. "It's so hot in here. Why don't you take off that heavy leather jacket?" she asked. "I'm okay," he said, looking annoyed. The jacket bulged out above his waist. He kept both hands in his pockets. "Doesn't Ellen look great?" Meg said, starting to feel a lot better about the party. "Yeah, I guess." "You in a bad mood or something? This is supposed to be a party." Why was she giving Tony a hard time? Just nerves, she figured. She'd gotten through the surprise part of the party, but the evening still had a long way to go. "Give me a break," he muttered. "You know I don't like parties much." She impulsively kissed him on the cheek. "Dance with me later?" "Maybe." He forced a half smile. After everyone had had a chance to greet Ellen, the large room got very noisy. With school just out, everyone was in a mood to celebrate. Lisa was chattering animatedly to Ellen, gesturing with her hands and laughing, but Ellen, seemingly distracted, kept looking over Lisa's shoulder. Meg followed Ellen's eyes. Ellen was looking at Tony. Tony stared back at her, scowled, then looked away. What's his problem, Meg thought. Then someone called to help her find the paper plates, and she forgot all about it. When she looked back a few minutes later, Ellen was talking animatedly to a large group of friends. Lisa and Corey were in the center of the room, actually getting along for once, and a few feet away from them, Suki Thomas, her peroxide blonde hair spiked in angry punk style, had her arm around Dwayne's waist as Dwayne looked anxiously around the room, probably searching for Shannon. The vast room echoed with laughter and loud voices. All in all, this was a pretty terrific party, Meg decided. "Quick, crank up the music," Shannon shouted, startling Meg from behind once again. "And crank it all the way up. This party is okay." Meg had borrowed Tony's boombox for music. It was nearly as big as her stereo at home. She rushed across the room to put in a tape, but Ellen stopped her in the middle of the room. "Great party, Meg," Ellen said, giving Meg a hug. "What a surprise. I'm a little overwhelmed." "I thought maybe you'd be furious at me," Meg said, giggling. She had borrowed Ellen's nervous giggle, she realized. "It was very sweet," Ellen said. "I really don't deserve it." "Don't be silly," Meg said. "We all wanted to welcome you back. We miss you, Ellen. I do, especially." "I miss you, too." Was that a tear in Ellen's eye? Meg couldn't believe it. It wasn't at all like Ellen to get that emotional. The party must have really touched her. "I'm going to put some music on," Meg called to her, hurrying across the room. Dwayne stepped in her way. She nearly ran right into him. "You seen Shannon?" he asked. "Not lately," she said coldly. She looked for Suki and spotted her across the room, her arm around some other boy's waist. "Tell her I'm looking for her, okay?" "Sure, Dwayne." She hurried away from him. At the table with the boombox, she quickly shuffled through the tapes and grabbed the hottest, loudest dance music she could find and shoved it into the player. A few seconds later, the music blasted out. It sounded great, booming off the walls and ceiling of the cavernous room. Several couples began to dance. Meg looked for Tony but couldn't find him. Finally, she spotted him sitting on the floor by himself in a corner, sipping a can of soda. "Want to dance?" she shouted, standing over him, moving with the music. "Maybe later," he said. He took a long swig from the can and stared past her at Ellen across the room. He still hadn't taken off his leather jacket, Meg saw, despite the heat of the room. "Great party," Lisa said, stepping between them and giving Meg a hug. "You really did it." "We really did it," Meg said happily. "I think we all deserve a—" She never finished her sentence. A commotion over by the boombox in a corner caught her eye. The music stopped at mid-note. Someone screamed. The few kids who were dancing turned around, confused. "Hey, what's going on?" "Brian?" Meg and Shannon started to run toward him. Brian was standing between the boombox table and the doorway. He had white bandages wrapped around part of his head. "It's the return of the mummy," someone shouted. A few kids laughed. "Quiet, everyone," Brian screamed over the laughter. "Brian, what are you doing here?" Meg cried. Through his bandages, she could see that his eyes were wild. He had a twisted, gleeful smile on his face. He raised both arms high in the air to signal for quiet. "Brian, please," Meg shouted. He didn't seem to hear her. "What's wrong with him?" Ellen asked, coming up to Meg, a very worried look on her face. "What's he going to do?" "Listen to the words of a fourth-level wizard," Brian shouted, his arms still high above his bandaged head. The room grew absolutely silent. No one moved. "I have the power now. I have reached the fourth level, and tonight I am going to bring Evan back." "No!" Ellen screamed, her mouth dropping into a wide O of horror. She tugged at the sides of her long blonde hair with both hands. "I'll stop him," Tony yelled, starting toward Brian, one hand clenched in a fist, the other reaching inside his leather jacket. "No, wait!" Meg held Tony back. "I am going to bring Evan back, now!" Brian shouted. He lowered his arms and then used both hands to point to the door. The door slowly started to open. "What is he doing?" Shannon cried. "Why is he doing this?" "No, stop this," Tony called, pulling away from Meg to rush at Brian. The door swung open. Someone was standing in the dim light of the corridor. Someone walked slowly into the room. "Is this a joke?" Shannon cried. "Some sort of sick joke?" Tony froze, his hand inside his jacket. Brian continued to point, his eyes wild with triumph as a tall figure stepped into the light. Some kids gasped, some screamed. The figure who stepped into the light was Evan. Chapter 21. Saturday night. "No, it's not you!" Tony screamed. Evan glared at Tony. His eyes looked white in the harsh light. He pointed a finger at Tony, an accusing finger, and took a step toward him. "No, you're dead!" Tony screamed, his features twisted in panic. He pulled his hand out from under his jacket. He was gripping a large black pistol. He swung it wildly, the nose pointed up to the ceiling. "I know you're dead because—" Evan took another step toward Tony. "Tony, the gun!" Meg cried. "Where did you... Why?" Okay, Tony shrieked, staring into Evan's eyes. "I know why you're here, Evan. I'll tell everyone the whole story. I'll tell everyone who killed you." "Mike, why are you doing this?" Shannon shouted. She turned to Tony. "It's not Evan. It's my half-brother Mike. For God's sake, put away the gun." "I don't know what he's doing, but I've got to get that gun away from him before he does something horrible," Meg thought. She stumbled forward and made a desperate grab for it, but Tony pulled away from her. He shoved her away hard, raising the gun out of her reach, then pointed it at Mike. Okay, I'll tell everything," Tony cried. "That's what you want, isn't it? Well, all right. Listen, everyone. I know who killed Evan. I'll tell the whole story now. The lights went out. Shouts and screams echoed off the walls. Kids were running in panic toward the door. Meg searched blindly for Tony. She wanted to grab him, hold him, take the gun away, find out what was going on, why he was so terrified, why he was about to confess. Confess? Yes, Tony was about to confess. Meg felt herself begin to tremble. She thought of Brian's warning to her, and she realized that Brian and Mike must have cooked up this whole scene just to frighten Tony. A gunshot just inches away from her made her jump and cry out. Someone screamed in pain. Chairs toppled over as kids tried to scramble blindly out of the pitch-black room. "No, please!" Now it was Meg's turn to scream. "Turn on the lights! Somebody turn on the lights!" A few seconds later, the lights came back on. Meg looked down. She was standing over Tony. He was curled on the floor, his eyes bugged out in fear, his hand grasping his shoulder. Blood poured down his arm onto the carpet beneath him. "Tony!" I've been shot." He didn't seem to believe it. "I've been shot," he repeated incredulously. "Somebody stop him!" a girl's voice shouted. "Stop who?" Meg looked up. Who was that running to the door? It was all happening so quickly, she wasn't sure she was seeing correctly. But she was. It was Dwayne, and he had Tony's gun in his hand. "Stop him! He shot Tony!" Dwayne tripped over a folding chair and sailed over it, landing on his stomach on the floor. Still gripping Tony's pistol, he turned quickly and threatened everyone with it. He climbed slowly to his feet, his dark eyes darting back and forth, keeping everyone in view. "I almost got away," he said. "I'm sorry you turned on the lights." "Dwayne, why did you shoot Tony?" Meg screamed. Tony, writhing on the floor, moaned and held his shoulder, as his blood continued to flow in a widening circle beneath him. "Shut up. Just shut up," Dwayne shouted at her, aiming the gun at Meg. She could see that he was desperately trying to decide what to do next. His plan had obviously been to shoot Tony and then escape in the darkness. But now every person in the room had seen him trying to run away with a gun in his hand. Why? Why did Dwayne shoot Tony? Why did Tony come to the party with a gun? Meg was as confused as she was frightened. I've got no choice, Dwayne said, his eyes still nervously surveying everyone around the large room. I don't want anybody coming after me. He moved forward quickly and grabbed Ellen roughly by the arm. He held the nose of the pistol to her temple. You come with me. You're the likely candidate, aren't you? You helped to kill Evan, too. Meg didn't think she heard correctly. Ellen helped to kill Evan? Ellen, too? What did Dwayne mean? No, please, Ellen begged. But Dwayne dragged her to the door, the pistol pressed tightly to her forehead. Anybody comes after me and she's history, Dwayne shouted. No one moved. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Dwayne meant it. Please, listen to him, Ellen cried to everyone. Someone has to stop him, Meg thought. We can't let him take Ellen. He's already shot Tony. We can't let him shoot Ellen, too. This is all my fault. My fault. My party. My fault. She knew she wasn't thinking clearly. She was too frightened to think clearly, but she knew she had to do something. She moved quickly along the wall, keeping in the shadows. Dwayne didn't see her as he backed toward the door. If she could get to the door first, maybe she could surprise him. Maybe she could grab the gun away, at least give Ellen a chance to run away. Kids were standing in small groups, frozen in fear. Meg moved quickly behind them, keeping low, praying that Dwayne wouldn't see her. Could she get to him before he got out the door? Could she startle him, surprise him enough to free Ellen? Her head was spinning. The floor seemed to buckle beneath her feet. The walls tilted, but she kept moving steadily, silently to the door. That's it. Nobody move. Don't force me to do something I'd hate to do, Dwayne called. He had his arm around Ellen's waist now as he dragged her across the room. He took the gun away from her head and gestured with it, aiming it around the room as a final warning to anyone who might think of following him. Meg got to the door first. She took a deep breath. Dwayne was just a few feet away, backing toward her. The gun was in reach. She could just reach out and... He spun around. He saw her. He shoved Ellen to the floor as Meg made her move. Meg lunged for the gun. She saw his face. She saw his eyes. She knew she was too late. Dwayne caught her arm and spun her around. He slammed her hard against the wall and shoved the pistol against her neck. He pushed the gun against her throat until Meg cried out in pain. Let's go, babes. You comin' too. I always wanted to have 2 girlfriends. Everything seemed speeded up now. Everything went too fast to think about, too fast to understand. They were in the dark corridor, the 3 of them. Dwayne pushed the 2 girls ahead of him, threatening them with the pistol if they hesitated or slowed down. Now they were running too fast. Ellen stared straight ahead, her face a blank. Was she pretending this wasn't happening? Meg tried to stop, tried to resist, but Dwayne forced her on, shoving the gun to the back of her neck. The metal was cold, so cold. It sent shivers down her back, shivers that didn't stop when he took the gun away, shivers that made it hard to run, hard to move, hard to breathe. He pushed them toward the front door of the old house, stopped, stood there without opening it, and then pulled them roughly back the other way. Ellen stared hard at the door. For a second, Meg thought she was going to try to make a run for it, but Ellen lowered her head and closed her eyes, resigned, waiting for Dwayne to tell her where to go next. They'll look for us outside, he said, sounding calm, sounding cold as the pistol against Meg's back. So we'll stay inside. Keeping them right in front of him, he pushed them to the stairs that led down to the basement. Meg stumbled, started to fall forward, but he grabbed her arm and kept her moving. They'll search the woods all night, but we'll be cozy and safe down here. Me and my 2 girlfriends. Real cozy. He laughed. He sounded very pleased with his plan. Why? Meg managed to ask. Her voice came out choked and small. Keep moving, he ordered, giving her a hard shove that almost sent her sprawling down the tiled stairs. Why? She repeated, too frightened to stop moving, too frightened to resist, too confused not to ask why. Why did you shoot Tony? I had to. I didn't know how much that stupid moron knew, but I couldn't take the chance. I couldn't let him tell everyone. Tell everyone what? That I killed Evan. Chapter 22. Saturday night. But Tony killed Evan, Ellen cried. I saw him. Meg stopped and uttered a cry of shock, of horror. Tony? What are you saying, Ellen? Tony killed Evan, Ellen repeated. That's impossible, Meg started. Meg, you don't know anything, Ellen said bitterly. Keep moving, Dwayne ordered, gesturing with the pistol. Where were they? He had pushed them into an area of the house that hadn't been renovated, through endless dark rooms, rooms filled with covered furniture, rooms caked with years of dust, Empty rooms. Rooms filled with strange tools and equipment. They pushed open another door and stumbled into another room. Dwayne found the light switch and turned it on. It was a large kitchen. Cobwebbed and dust-covered, it appeared to have been abandoned for a very long time. Grimy copper pans hung on hooks just above their heads. A grease-stained range stood against the wall. Wooden counters were cluttered with dishes and pots that hadn't been used for years. The entire room smelled of mold and mildew and decay. Perfect, Dwayne said, looking around. I like to hang around a warm, inviting kitchen, don't you? He laughed to himself. Old Dwayne has done it again. They'll never find us here. We'll hang out a bit, get cozy, and when the excitement dies down, we'll make our escape. He gestured for the girls to sit on the floor beside the range, which they did. He pointed a pistol at each of them and pretended to shoot them one at a time, making gun noises with his lips. Great sense of humor, Dwayne, Ellen muttered. Shut up, Dwayne said, and laughed as if he had just cracked a joke. What do you think you're doing? Ellen demanded. I saw Tony kill Evan. Why did you go berserk up there? What is in your crazy brain? You never figured out the truth? Dwayne looked sincerely shocked. I know the truth, Ellen insisted. I was there. Tony and I followed Evan into the Fear Street woods. We were worried about him. I had just told Evan I wanted to break up with him. You what? Meg cried. None of this made any sense to her. Ellen, break up with Evan? I'm sorry, Meg. I'm real sorry, Ellen said, seeing the confusion on Meg's face. But you've got to grow up sometime, kiddo. Tony and I were going out behind your back. I wanted to go with Tony, so I told Evan. You and Tony? Meg tried to keep her voice steady, but this was all too much. Yeah, me and Tony. Well, you can imagine how Evan took the news. He threw a fit. He went bananas. He grabbed his father's hunting rifle and bombed off to the woods. He said he just wanted to shoot something. Anything. Well, Tony and I followed him. We were worried about him. He was so crazy. We wanted to try to calm him down. But the first thing we knew, Tony and Evan were fighting over the rifle. It went off, and Evan was dead. Tony killed Evan. I don't believe it, Meg said, feeling dazed. She pulled up her knees and curled up, resting her head against them. Tony was there? That can't be. Brian said. Brian came running up a minute or so after Tony shot Evan. He found Tony and me there, trying to decide what to do. He was scared out of his mind. He said he had it all figured out. He was going to make it look like Evan shot himself, like it was an accident. Then he threatened Brian and me. He said he'd kill us both if we ever told anyone that he was in the woods with us. Brian and I saw the look on Tony's face. We knew that he meant it. I don't believe this. I just don't, Meg insisted. You might as well hear the rest, Ellen said. Tony ran off after making it look like an accident. I was hysterical. I couldn't think straight. I was so frightened. So was Brian. As soon as Tony was gone, we went for help. All of these months, Brian and I kept our secret. That Tony killed Evan. All of these months, we were too frightened to talk. No wonder Tony's been so weird all year, Meg said. Dwayne laughed. Meg looked up. She had almost forgotten that he was there, standing over them with the pistol. Why was he laughing? What could possibly be so funny? Hey, let's give a little credit where credit is due, he said. What are you talking about, Dwayne? Ellen asked. I thought Tony found out the truth. I thought he was going to tell it all upstairs when that Evan clone showed up. I thought he was going to tell everyone that I did it, that I did Evan. He laughed and shook his head. I guess the joke's on Tony, that stupid moron. He started pacing the room, twirling the pistol in his hand. How could you kill Evan? Ellen persisted. How? I saw Tony and Evan fight over the rifle. I saw Evan fall. I saw him die. Dwayne shook his head. You're stupid, too. Tony didn't kill Evan. I did. Brian and I were playing Wizards and Dungeons in the woods when we heard a gunshot. Brian said we had to go see what it was. I said no. I told Brian I was going home. Brian went to see what the shot was. I followed him, keeping behind so he wouldn't see me too. So you were there too? Ellen cried. I watched everything, the whole scene. I thought Tony had killed Evan, but after he ran off, and after you and Brian went to get help, I went up close and took a look. Evan wasn't dead. He wasn't even hit. He had hit his head on a rock and was knocked unconscious. Oh no, Ellen moaned. Evan was alive. And you? Dwayne nodded his head. I hated Evan. I always hated Evan. He wouldn't let me go out with his sister. He wouldn't even let me look at her. I wasn't good enough for her. He always made me feel like a worm. So here was my chance. I picked up the rifle and taught Evan a lesson. A final lesson. He was dead already, right? At least 3 other people thought so. So I just made it official. That's the most cold-blooded thing I've ever heard, Meg cried. She realized she was trembling. Her mouth was so dry she thought she might choke. Her hands and feet were freezing cold. Dwayne giggled, a sick, high-pitched giggle. Yeah, it is, ain't it? He said boastfully. Funny thing is, it was so easy, and kind of fun in a way. He'll kill us next, Meg realized. He killed Evan as easily as swatting a fly. He's laughing about it, not the least bit sorry. He shot Tony upstairs, and now we have to be next. He's told us too much. We know everything. We're not getting out of here alive. Dwayne grinned down at her. It was as if he could read her thoughts. He twirled the pistol menacingly and stared at them both. I've got to do something, Meg thought. I can't just sit here. I've got to at least try to get us out of here. How could you kill somebody like that? Ellen screamed at Dwayne, her face filled with disgust, with loathing, and with new fear. Like this. He pointed a pistol at her and pulled back the hammer. No, don't. Ellen raised her hands as if to shield herself. Dwayne laughed and made a shooting noise with his lips. He isn't always going to pretend to shoot us, Meg thought. One of these times, very soon, he's going to pull the trigger for real. Can we stand up? Meg asked. My legs are falling asleep. Yeah, sure, Dwayne said, still staring at Ellen. Whatever. He twirled the pistol and dropped it. It clattered against a hard concrete floor. Meg helped pull Ellen to her feet, and as Dwayne bent over to retrieve the pistol, she whispered in Ellen's ear, Eek, a mouse. Dwayne grabbed a gun and turned back to them quickly. You two are pretty slow, he said with a pleased sneer. You could have made a run for it just now. We're not going anywhere, Meg said dispiritedly. She wondered if Ellen had heard her. She wondered if Ellen understood. She didn't dare look at her to see. Dwayne was watching them too closely. She just knew she had to do something. Killing Evan was so easy, Dwayne had said. She didn't want to make it easy for him. She didn't want to die in this filthy, abandoned cellar kitchen. Her back pressed tightly against a cold tile wall. She moved an inch closer to Ellen and gave her arm a light tap. Your turn, Ellen. Remember the game? Eek a mouse. Did you hear what I whispered? Please, Ellen. Please. What's going on? Dwayne shouted suddenly, raising the pistol. Ah! Ellen screamed at the top of her lungs, a deafening scream of pure terror, and pointed behind Dwayne. A mouse! Startled, Dwayne turned. Meg knew she had an instant, less than an instant. She reached up and grabbed a big copper frying pan off the wall. It was heavier than she had imagined, but she didn't think about that. In one motion, she grabbed for it, reached it, pulled it down, and as Dwayne turned back to them, she swung it and hit him hard in the face. So hard the frying pan clanged, metal against bone. Dwayne didn't utter a sound. His eyes closed. 2 teeth dropped out of his mouth. Blood gushed from both nostrils, and he fell. Meg picked the gun up from the floor. Let's go upstairs, she said, breathing hard, so hard, but breathing, grateful to be breathing. Someone upstairs must have called the police by now. They took a final look at Dwayne, lying face down in a dark pool of blood. Then they ran out of the dank kitchen and headed through the maze of dark, empty rooms toward the stairs. Hey, Ellen called, struggling to keep up with Meg. You sure know how to throw a party. Chapter 23. Sunday afternoon. So it was Tony the whole time trying to stop the party? Shannon tossed a pair of socks across the room to Mike, who dropped them into his suitcase. Shannon and Meg were up in Mike's room helping him pack to go back to school. Yeah, it was Tony, Meg said, shaking her head. What an idiot I was. You weren't an idiot, Shannon said quickly. You were, trusting, Mike said helpfully. He folded a pair of jeans into the suitcase. That's just another word for idiot, Meg said. Meg, please, that doesn't sound like you, Shannon said. You've been through a horrible time. We all have. But you can't let it make you, bitter, Mike said. He always liked finishing Shannon's sentences for her. I guess I've learned a lot from all this, Meg sighed wearily. Is Tony going to be okay? Shannon asked. He lost a lot of blood, but the ambulance arrived quickly last night. They got him to the hospital on time. The doctors there said he'll be okay, Meg said quietly. That part of her life was over, she knew. She was so used to Tony. She wondered what it was going to be like without him now. Shannon held up a pair of dirty sweat socks. You're not going to pack these, are you, Mike? No, I was going to give them to you. Happy birthday. Shannon tossed them into the suitcase. They don't smell any worse than the rest of your clothes? I talked to Tony's dad, Meg said. He's going to get him help, to get his head straight. Some friends know a really good shrink in New York. Poor Tony's very mixed up. It's going to take a long time. Think of what a year Tony must have had, Mike said, shaking his head. He went a whole year thinking he had killed Evan. A whole year scared to death that people would find out. Scared to death his life was ruined forever. And then it turns out he didn't kill Evan after all. That's pretty heavy. Poor Tony, and poor Ellen, Shannon said, and poor Brian, Poor everyone? Where is Ellen? Mike asked. Went back home this morning, Meg told him. I wonder when we'll ever see her again. They were all silent for a while, each thinking about the horrifying scene the night before at the party. Bright sunlight filtered through the curtains, which fluttered in a warm breeze. Baby robins chirped from a nest just beyond the window. Your cousin Brian's quite a guy, Mike said finally. When he came to me with that idea about pretending to be Evan, I thought he was nuts. We all thought he was nuts, Meg said. Poor Brian. He was just so frightened of Tony. He lost himself in that fantasy game world of his just so he wouldn't have to face the real world. But if it wasn't for Brian and Ellen, we might never have known the truth, Mike said wistfully. Brian and Ellen? Meg asked, surprised. Yeah, they cooked up the idea together for me to appear at the party as Evan, Mike said. That's why Ellen went to visit Brian, Meg realized, to plan that little scene. So Ellen knew all about the surprise party, Shannon said. Brian told her, Mike said. They both couldn't stand the guilt any longer, Mike said. They had to let the truth out. They had to let everyone know about Tony, about them, about what really happened in the Fear Street woods. They had wanted to go to the police for months, but they had waited so long they weren't sure the police would believe them. And they were so frightened of Tony, they thought they'd be safer if they exposed him in front of everyone, Mike continued. Brian put on a really convincing crazy act, Meg said. He was really brave, Mike said, slamming the suitcase shut. You were brave too, Meg told him. She turned away. She suddenly had tears in her eyes. It was all starting to catch up to her. Shannon came around to where Meg was sitting on the bed and put an arm around her shoulder. You'll be okay, she said tenderly. We'll all be okay now. Meg wiped away the tears with the back of her hand. She and Shannon accompanied Mike down the stairs. He stopped in the front hall to put his suitcase down. Please go tell Dad I'm ready to go to the airport, he told Shannon. Aye, sir. She hurried to the backyard. He turned to Meg and smiled. You know, I'll be back in July, he said. Maybe we could go out or something. Meg returned his smile. That would be nice, she said. I'd like to go out with you, Mike. Only, one thing. What's that? Please, no parties. This has been a Nightfall Audiobooks production of The Surprise Party by R.L. Stine, a Fear Street novel. Book 2. Hi, this is Chris with Nightfall Audiobooks, and thank you for joining me for my production of The Surprise Party by R.L. Stine. I don't know what to do with this book. It's kind of a mess. It has a very weird premise. Ellen sees her brother Evan die in the woods, and she moves away to get away from it all, which is understandable. And then when Meg hears that Ellen's coming back to town for a visit, Meg decides to throw her a surprise party with all of her friends. But no one's talked to Ellen, no one said, hey, how are you doing? No one's done any wellness checks, anything like that. They're just going to automatically throw her a party. And then when Shannon and Meg go to visit Ellen that one day, and it's all strained conversation and all weird and awkward, and Meg's kicking herself going, why did I think this was going to be such a good idea? Yeah, why did you think that was going to be such a good idea? So the premise is weird, and then trying to figure out who was stopping the party in the first place, that was kind of lame too. So throwing a surprise party for someone who doesn't like parties and for someone who didn't want the party, it just doesn't make any sense. We got a glimpse of another mansion in the woods, but this time it wasn't all ramshackle and disgusting like the Fear Street mansion or the manor that was used in the Halloween party. This one was renovated and ready for sale, and the guy who renovated it said, hey Meg, you can go ahead and use it for a party, but make sure you clean up afterwards. I don't know about that, you know? You're going to have a contractor spend all this time renovating a house and getting it ready for sale, only to have a bunch of stupid teenagers go in and mess it all up with some big party? Yeah, I don't think so. Not so much on that one. The end of the book is kind of a mess, where Evan convinces Mike, who we haven't met before, to pretend to be Evan, to force someone's hand into confessing that they really killed Evan. And here it wasn't Brian, here it wasn't Tony, it was Dwayne. It was stupid moosehead Dwayne. It was the guy that's been trying to get horizontal or vertical in his dancing with Shannon the entire book, and Shannon's like, yeah, no thanks. What's up with these guys anyway? What was there, like a huge reunion in the woods or something like that? Everybody wanted to kill Evan? So Dwayne killed Evan because Evan never let Dwayne go out with Shannon? The jealousy and how it gets people riled up is on full display in this novel. I kind of want to laugh at this book and say, hey, if you want a mess of a book, read this. but I can't because it's just not good enough. It's okay, but after The New Girl, it's a very weird introduction to Fear Street. If you somehow missed The New Girl and you picked this up and this was your first book, I don't think I would read any more Fear Street, which is unfortunate because it's book 2. You can feel R.L. Stine really trying to figure out his formulas and figure out this world that he's creating and stuff, because he keeps on introducing Corey Brooks and David Metcalf, and Lisa Bloom comes back in, and then Arnie Tobin is there. That's fine. So he's establishing a roster of kids that are at Shadyside High. That's great. Hats off to you. But the story itself is just weird. I can't recommend this novel. I really wish I could. I don't like saying anything poor about anyone's works because it's a lot of effort to write a book. Even if the book is a disjointed mess, it still is a lot of effort to get it published and written and edited and things. I mean, the cover's really cool. I guess that's Mike on the front heading into the mansion pretending to be Evan. I'm going to go with that. It makes the cover a bit more interesting. So what should I read next? I don't know. Send me an email, nightfallaudiobooks@gmail.com. I am also at home right here on YouTube at Nightfall Audiobooks. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that join button to show your support. Any help is greatly appreciated, and I really, truly do mean that. I also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/nightfallaudiobooks. So tell your friends, tell your mom, tell whoever you think would like to listen to me tell them tales from R.L. Stine. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you next time.